I was going to pull up the sound in the scene, but I'm like, you know what? It's not Charlotte, it's Lydia. We're not rooting for Lydia. No offense to her. But we will talk about the scene anyway. Finally, she got the opportunity to visit Heyrick Park and see the horses, and we get to see Hannibal again. I'm pretty sure that horse met Charlotte in season 2. He's that type of horse that has that sunlight. He does like the vibe test, like he can tell if you are a good person or not. He liked Charlotte in season 2. When he wasn't himself, like he was like unsettled. He like was very active, and then in this scene, Alexander warned Lydia, like, be careful, but Hannibal seemed to like Lydia. She's not a bad person, it's just she's not the right love match for Alexander. On the side, Lady Montrose is watching her daughter spend time with Alexander. It's a little bit annoying, like that pride that Lady Montrose has. She's like, my daughter gonna win, my daughter gonna get married to Alexander, and just boasting about her daughter in front of Alexander, and he's just like, okay, and they try to stay civil. But on the other hand, though, random thought, I don't think Alexander would like Lady Montrose as a future mother-in-law. I don't know, I wouldn't like it.
You keep a fine house here, Mr. Colburn. Although, as a widow myself, I imagine it must get rather lonely.
Lady Montrose, like, he has Leonora, Augusta, a lovely Mrs. Whitley, like, she's like a family member, and then the rest of the household staff. He's not lonely.
I'm hardly alone, Your Grace. I have Augusta, Leonora, and, well, as you've seen, a stable full of horses.
But I can understand Lady Monroe trying to say it on the romantic side, like, he might get lonely, especially at night, with no wife around. He sleep by himself, like, let's be honest.
As long as I had horses and a pianoforte, I believe I could renounce human company for months on end.
I'm inclined to agree.
You're clearly of a like mind.
I see common interest between Lydia and Alexander, but I don't really see that passionate chemistry between the two like he had with Charlotte. But for now, it's going well, Lydia would have been like a decent runner-up if Charlotte and Alexander didn't work out. The way that Lydia described about having horses and piano, like she can live with that with no humans around, and it just showed that she can be very introvert. She likes to be by herself with nature and with the horses and music, and Alexander can understand that because he is a reserved man. He likes to be alone most of the times. They seem to be compatible with one another so far.
A carriage has just arrived with Mrs. Parker and Miss Hayward in it. And a man.
Excuse me.
What a great interruption. We already know Mary is going to meet Alexander, but this confirms that Charlotte and Ralph are coming along. What a facial expression on Alexander's faces. At first, though, when Lady Monroe said, oh, you and Lydia seem like great with one another, you two seem to be compatible with one another, he looked down. He wasn't like 100% happy because he still would rather have Charlotte instead of Lydia. And then when Leonora came over and announced the arrival of the 3 guests, Alexander kind of like perked up a little bit. He's like, wait, what? Like, what? Like, half of him like, no, but I think the other half, I think he would be a little bit happy to see Charlotte once again before she leaves for good.
What an unwelcome interruption. Especially as you're doing so well.
Lady Montrose did ask Lady Denham at the shooting party if there was something going on or something happened between Charlotte and Alexander in the past. And Lady Denham, thankfully, told Lady Montrose, like, oh no, they just had that professional relationship, employer-employee relationship, like nothing serious, nothing romantic. So Lady Montrose picked up on something on Charlotte's relationship with Alexander, and I think she picked up on that once again in this scene when she said, oh, what an unwelcome interruption, because I think she still had that gut feeling that there's still something going on with Charlotte and Alexander, but she just hasn't figured it out yet. Lydia, she's like much more calmer than her mom. She's just like, whatever happened, happened. This is interesting though. What's next? What's about to happen next? In the scene, it's like kind of like a competition continues at the same time between Lydia and Charlotte.
Miss Haywood!
Mr. Colburn, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of asking Miss Hayward to join us.
Not at all.
The glances between Charlotte and Alexander, it wasn't like a look of like they mad at each other. I don't know how to describe it. It's awkward, but it's a good awkwardness that's happening in the scene. I think they were not too mad about it. I think like a little part of them, like they were happy to see each other, but also it was that look of like sending a mental message to each other, like, oh, the last time we talked, we saw each other, that happened. And that's where like the awkwardness began, you know. But wow, I mean, the intensity is climbing up again between Charlotte and Alexander. That passion, they cannot deny it. I mean, the chemistry is still there, and one of them just need to like, you know, make it happen.
And I believe you've met Mr. Starling.
Mr. Colburn? Pleasure to see you again, sir.
Mr. Heybourne could not take his eyes off of her. I think he had his eyes on her a little bit longer than he should have. I think Ralph caught that. When Ralph was introduced to Alexander, Alexander finally took his eyes off of Charlotte and gave attention to Ralph, out of respect, of course. I think this is the beginning that Ralph realizes, like, okay, maybe the reason why Charlotte is staying here longer than she's supposed to is because of this guy.
You're the man that's marrying Miss Haywood.
I am indeed that lucky fellow.
Ralph, Miss Leonora Colburn, and you've met Miss Markham.
At the same time, Leonora, when she asked Ralph that question, I bet she was thinking in the back of her mind, like, you stole Charlotte away from us, you stole Charlotte from my dad. Leonora, she knows what's going on. She knows that there's some romance going on between her father and Charlotte.
Will you join us for tea? We have Lady Montrose and Lady Lydia with us.
There's cake.
Once again, it's a good awkwardness in the scene between Charlotte and Alexander. They look at each other again when Augusta asks about if they would like to join the family for some tea with Lydia and Lady Montrose.
Oh, if this is not a convenient time.
Not at all. I insist.
Do you see that look from Ralph to Alexander at the end of this scene? It's so obvious he is sensing something going on between his Charlotte and Alexander. So now Ralph will become more protective of Charlotte and keep his eyes on Alexander like a hawk. And Alexander, like, kudos to him. Like, he tried to like stay calm and collected, smile, like nothing happened between him and Charlotte. But it's awkward, you know. It's awkward for Alexander and it's awkward for Charlotte. The last conversation was so full of passion and romance and intensity. Like, it's just wow. It was a big moment. And now, they get to see each other. They didn't plan to see each other again, but, somehow the universe pulled them closer once again at the Heyrick Park. Also, I was thinking, I don't know if this makes sense, but if Alexander is liking Lydia in a romantic way, I don't think he would have allowed Mary, Charlotte, and Ralph to interrupt his time with Lydia, you know what I mean? But since he allowed this interruption to the tea hangout with Lydia and Lady Montrose, to me it shows that Alexander really doesn't care much for Lydia in that way. I mean, he's still like getting to know her like as a friend at least, but I don't think he like too interested in her in a way that he want to pursue a lifelong relationship with her.
I must apologise again for interrupting, Your Grace.
But I hear you came with a proposal. I am intrigued.
We are to discuss a scheme for the Old Town. One which seeks to improve the conditions for those who live there.
A proposal that I fully support.
Let's pay attention to the seating arrangement of the garden tea table. Alexander is literally sitting next to Charlotte, and that's just like, that's an interesting seating arrangement. Charlotte between Ralph and Alexander. That can increase the intensity of this love affair between Charlotte and Alexander.
And Miss Hayward has also suggested founding a school for the local children.
An admirable idea.
Oh boy, Alexander fell in love again with Charlotte in that moment. He was very impressed by her idea, and more importantly than that, her good heart and her kindness to even consider that, or to even think about the children and providing education to them, especially in the Old Town.
Of course, it is no surprise to find you so preoccupied with education, Miss Hayward, since you were governess here, were you not?
Briefly.
Charlotte liked the compliment from Alexander. Ralph, he was watching the glance between Charlotte and Alexander, so it's very, very obvious that Ralph is keeping his eyes on them like a hawk. And of course, Lady Montrose, she started this like investigation, this interrogation moment of putting Charlotte in the spotlight about her previous employment at Heyrick Park. And since that uncomfortableness that Charlotte is feeling, she really didn't want to talk much about her past employment for Mr. Heybourne.
But then she suddenly left. And when she returned, she was engaged to Mr. Starling.
Then I must apologise for stealing her from you, Miss Colburn.
Leonora was not shy at all. She said it the way it was. What happened to Charlotte, like how she worked for the family, left, and then came back engaged to a different man that is not Leonora's father. Thankfully, Ralph said that little joke just to lighten up the mood.
When are you to be married, Miss Hayward?
A little over 2 weeks.
My congratulations to you both.
Thank you. We are living for the day, aren't we, Charlotte?
Charlotte and Alexander glance at each other once again. It's interesting though, they can't really talk to each other like in private, so the only thing they can do for now is just look at each other from time to time. Charlotte, she said a little over 2 weeks until her wedding, and it was a reminder to Alexander like, oh yeah, she's getting married like in 2 weeks, like I'm gonna lose her forever, He's thinking that he's never gonna get a chance to be with Charlotte. Like, he lost her for good. She is totally marrying Ralph unless she's changed her mind.
I have high hopes that my son and Miss Lamb will not be far behind you. And you must be keen for Miss Markham to find a husband, Mr. Colburn. You don't want to wait until she's Lydia's age.
Lady Montrose comparing her daughter Lydia to Augusta, current situation with her love life. Lydia's like, are you serious? Like, why do you have to compare me against Augusta. But you can tell the look on Augusta's face. She really didn't want to talk about it. She is still very, very mad at her uncle. Lady Montrose, once again, she still have high hopes for Miss Lamb and Harry to end up together. Of course, she would say Lydia and Alexander to end up together too, but that's too soon to say, and she wouldn't want to say it in front of this group. So that's why she went over to Augusta, the topic of Augusta love life.
Indeed. As long as we can find someone who is worthy.
Worthy, in your right at least, Uncle. Since what I think and feel are clearly of no consequence.
You the confrontation in front of the group. It's a little bit embarrassing for Alexander, but you can tell that he is still struggling with his relationship with Augusta in regard to Edward and just basically Augusta's love life in general.
Excuse me. I think I shall take a turn around the grounds. I'll join you.
Charlotte, she must have been remembering that conversation she had with Augusta at the shooting party when Augusta asked her, how did Charlotte know when she was in love with Val? Like, Augusta was trying to get some love advice from Charlotte, and that conversation got cut off. So Charlotte, I wouldn't be surprised if she was thinking of that earlier conversation with Augusta and matching that to this moment in this scene of Augusta being really mad at her uncle about the man that she wanted to be with, that he doesn't approve. So Charlotte's matching the puzzle pieces together.
Since our encounter this morning, I've not been able to stop thinking. A man needs laughter in his life, and I've laughed more over this last few weeks in your company than I have in years.
When I watched the scene again, I was thinking, okay, what did they do in the morning? And he was talking about laughters. And I was like, okay, they must have went on a buggy ride this past morning on that same day in the scene. And it was something that Lady Denham didn't want to do, but she finally gave in and they did it. And it's by the sound of it, they had fun on that ride.
Oh. And there are so many pleasures in life that need to be shared, and so I thought I would ask you.
I hope you're not proposing another ride in that death trap of yours.
The word shared, it should, bring up a word in your mind, a proposal. This sounds like a proposal humming from Mr. Price to Lady Denham, and if it is, it would be something that she did not expect at all.
I was proposing marriage, you foolish woman.
Marriage?
I would get down on one knee, but it would take 2 footmen and a winch to get me back up again. So? No, take your time, think about it.
I think it was like mixed emotion of shock, surprise, I think she felt like she was nervous, at the same time. I think she had some doubt still inside of her. She doesn't want to get hurt again. She doesn't want to waste time in investing in a man that will break her heart. And also, she's very independent and she's so comfortable being a single woman and living by herself and not having to worry about a partner, worry about the safety of a partner. For example, all she has to do is worry about herself.
No, take your time, think about it.
No need. Lady Denham, I wish to keep that title and my fortune to boot.
But then she hears a lot about her title, her fortune. She had that name, she had that reputation, she had that money, she's doing just fine by herself. If she does marry Mr. Price, it will be a huge adjustment for her. Her name will get changed. She might move away to Sanditon. That's another thing. They have to discuss on the future home together as a husband and wife in Sanditon or in another town. There are so many questions that comes with his proposal to her.
No amount of laughter can compensate for that, can it? Oh, good heavens. No, let's go and have some tea.
That broke Mr. Price's heart. Basically, she says, like, in another definition, what she said to him is basically like she would rather keep her name and her money instead of spending a lifetime of laughter and happiness with Mr. Price. So she was like comparing her name, her money to him, and she would rather keep herself instead of losing herself in the marriage with Mr. Price or changing her life to adapt to Mr. Price. She's very independent. She's very comfortable living by herself, and it was just sad at the same time. That look on Mr. Price's face, he was brokenhearted. In a way, like he got hurt twice. You know, he's feeling those emotions again when he got his heart broken when they broke up when they were younger, and now they are at an old age. And he tried again with her, and she said no too. It didn't work out again, and he got his heart broken the second time. That's a lot of courage for him to try to propose to her again and to convince her to marry him. But right now, she said no. And I think part of her, she's scared too. I think she is scared to marry him at the same time, and she's hiding it very well. I feel like there's so many emotions and thoughts coming to her mind, but I wouldn't be surprised though if she does eventually say yes to him. He was the one that she wanted to be with. Like, he was the one, and he picked another woman, and that broke her heart. So I don't blame her for not wanting to get hurt again. But if the universe gives you a second chance at love with that same person, like, you should take that as a yes.
We've been exchanging letters. We even managed to meet a handful of times. But now my uncle has me barred from leaving the house. I am kept under lock and key.
I struggle to believe he would have done so without good reason.
That swing, I feel like that's like her favorite hiding spot for Augusta. That spot of her just being alone and thinking about what's going on in her life. It's like her retreat place, you know, to get away from everyone and have a moment of silence to herself. It's nice that Charlotte went to her to check on her. She opened up easily with Charlotte, and it's so different compared to in season 2 when they just first met and Augusta really didn't like Charlotte right away, and now they have this evolved friendship with each other, a friendship that is full of trust with one another, especially Augusta trusting Charlotte a lot about telling Charlotte her situation with this particular man.
Why should he determine who I can and cannot love? Were my parents alive, they would only want to see me happy.
Could you tell me who this gentleman is?
At the same time, Charlotte is like on both sides. Alexander and Augusta, she is trying to like figure out like why this is happening. She does have like good trust in Alexander. She knows that he is a good father, a good uncle. Like, he is preventing Augusta from this mysterious man for a good reason. She believed that, you know, Alexander wouldn't be that mean, that harsh to Augusta. Like, there had to be a good reason. And then Augusta comparing her uncle to her parents. She's like, if my parents were still around, like, this wouldn't have had to happen. But in all honesty, I think her parents would have disagreed, like Alexander is right now. They would have not approved Edward. No way. She still had that struggle of like, oh, I wish my parents were here. Like, it would have been easier. She still had that mental struggle of missing her parents so much, especially with what she's going through, trying to find a man to marry, falling in love. Like, she will wish to have her mom still alive to give her advice on romance and how to be a lady.
He is from a good family. He has a poetic soul. He is kinder than anyone knows.
Why she didn't tell Charlotte his name? Like, it's so obvious. Like, Alexander already knows. Like, it's gonna be revealed anyway, you know? So I was confused why she didn't tell Charlotte his name. Like, you know, I think it would be normal to tell Charlotte the name of the guy, but I know why she did it, because she didn't want, you know, to hear it anymore. Like, she doesn't want to feel embarrassed. You know, Charlotte probably thinking like, why do you pick Edward? Like, he's not a good man. Like, she doesn't want to hear the negative talk, the negative advice. If she did reveal Edward's name to Charlotte.
Yet, my uncle still does not consider him good enough. I'm sure he's just trying to secure your future.
I mean, we are the audience, like, we can see the whole picture, right? But in Augusta world, she being blinded by the fake love with Edward. She had no idea what he is up to. She had no idea the abilities that Edward has in doing evil things toward people, especially women, trying to get the woman to fall for him and take advantage of the woman. Augusta hasn't seen that side of Edward just yet.
A miserable future, trapped in an unhappy marriage, instead of being with the man I've fallen in love with.
I thought I'd talk about this one, but somehow I never did, or I probably lost it, but here we go again. I was going to say, though, that what Augusta said in this portion of the conversation with Charlotte, it relates back to what Charlotte is going through. If she does end up with Ralph, it will be a miserable future, because it will be a loveless marriage. She doesn't love Ralph the way that she loved Alexander.
If you and he are truly meant to be together, you will find a way.
That is a nice thing to say, but that might be a bad advice if we would talk about that later on. I'm not sure if it the end of this episode or episode 5. Been a while. But yeah, you know, that advice, you know, you will find a way. In a good way or in a bad way, you know what I mean? But somehow, you know, what Charlotte said at the end of the scene motivated Augusta. She's like, you know, start calculating, because Edward wanted to be with her and to marry her, but he is leaving Sanditon. So the only solution, right, is if Augusta elope with him, you know, escape Heyrick Park in the middle of the night, for example, and go out of town with Edward and get married in a different city or whatnot, away from the people that she knows. Yeah, that would be the only solution. Okay, I mean, this must be a sign that Samuel likes Lady Susan that way. I mean, he doing something that she loved doing when she was growing up. I mean, this is like so personal, you know, what he did for her, like the action that he did for her to show her that he cares about her and values his friendship with her. I think it's just a big gesture, you know, and I think it's a romantic gesture at the same time. So here comes the friendly race between Samuel and Lady Susan. She agreed to him. Of course, she's all about fun and maintaining that high record in that type of race. She seemed very excited right before they started to race. She seemed confident. She was like, I still got this. Samuel, we really don't know if he done this before, but they did it. They raced against each other. I was also thinking, though, this is kind of like dangerous, because the carriage can like tip off, right, or like fall down. Like anything can happen. Like any type of accident can happen during this kind of race. But they seem to be like having fun, and they were confident in their ability to win this race. Samuel definitely enjoying it. This is like replaying her childhood days, you know, for Susan. It's like going back into her past, those happy days during her childhood. She seemed to enjoy this childhood moment again with Samuel. Once again, that was very unexpected but very thoughtful, because she did mention to him earlier that she used to do this when she was a kid, growing up. And he thought, like, hey, why not? This should be fine, and it's something that they can do together as a couple, even though they are not at the moment. I was surprised, though, that Samuel won the race. I thought Lady Susan would. She was very surprised. She was like, how could you, how could you win against me? Very ungentlemanlike. But she's like, let's do it again. She had that adventurous spirit. She's not afraid to do this thrilling race against Samuel. The best of three wins. So at least another 2 rounds if Samuel wins 3 in a row. This is the beginning of something special between these two.
Dr. Fuchs. Willkommen zu Hause.
How is this possible, Fräulein? In my brief absence, you have become fluent in my mother tongue.
She's very smart. I mean, she can pick up a foreign language. She can learn German really well. I'm sure that German. This relationship is blossoming between her and the doctor. She was very happy to see him. He had been away in London, I believe, for a good while now. So it's a nice catch-up for these two.
I'm so delighted in your tales from the capital, Doctor. Especially your description of the stethoscope. Can you really hear every last heartbeat?
As loud as a drum, Fräulein.
When you want to be in a relationship, it's nice when your partner is interested in what you do as a career or what you like to do as hobby, like very interested to learn more about you. And it's a good sign for the doctor, because Miss Hinken is so interested in his work, in hearing the heartbeat. Like, she was very interested to learn more about him and what he does as a doctor. I just love how these two started as friends with deep interest in one another, and this relationship, this friendship can lead to something greater, something life-lasting. Like, it can lead to a romantic relationship if they do want to go that far. Like I said in the very beginning of season 3, I think, it's just nice that even though Miss Hinken never found love, like, she really didn't find a man at a young age, but she finds a man at her older age, and it just teaches me a lesson personally that it's never too late for love, you know. Whether you divorce and want to get married again, or if you know, ready to get married at a later age instead of now. Love, you know, it's just all the time, and it's just that perfect timing that that's going to happen when you do find that love, whether you at a young age or old age. I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't limit your horizon, you know. Miss Hinken, she was still open to love to this day, to this scene in this episode. Like, she didn't give up. She never closed the door on love, and she found this doctor that she really liked.
Herr Doctor. Back from the metropolis, I see.
I came to inquire after our shared patient.
When you're in a secret relationship, you don't want your parents or your guardians to know about your secret relationship. That's how I feel for Miss Hinken. She's like, oh no, my brother hurt me.
I am pleased to say that under my aegis, Sir Edward appears to have undergone nothing less than a Damascene conversion. Indeed, I would be so bold as to say that he has flourished in your absence.
Oh, not really. Edward is still Edward, so nothing working on him, but he is faking it really well in front of the priest.
Absence?
Jawohl. Fräulein Hankins has spoken of his progress in her epistles.
Epistles? It was just a few short notes.
Mr. Hinken, his mind is like mashing the puzzle together. He's seen her once or twice with some secret letters, and you know, he knew that it was from the doctor. He didn't want to believe it, so he just like kind of like let it go. But now the doctor is saying that she wrote him a bunch of letters. And Mr. Hinkin, like, what? Like, you have this secret relationship with a doctor that is against my religious belief, that is against what I believe and we believe. It's like a shocking revelation at the same time for Mr. Hinkin.
You are too modest. Your sister has such an observant eye, such a fine turn of phrase. I dare say she has the makings of a novelist.
I feel like she's one of the people that doesn't really talk much, but when she talks or when she writes words down about wisdom in life or just a random advice on something, I feel like she can be like a good writer or maybe like a good motivational speaker, you know? So the doctor sees something special about her, like he sees like a hidden talent that she had that she really doesn't like show off about it, and I think that's really cool that the doctor sees something like that in her.
I see. Well, now you are returned, I am sure there is no need for this correspondence to continue.
Mr. Hinkin is like Alexander. Maybe he's the older brother of Miss Hinkin. I'm not sure which one older, but yeah, he's like Alexander. Like, you cannot see this man. Like, I am not gonna allow it. I'm not gonna approve this relationship. She felt helpless. She was speechless. She was like, what? Like, I cannot talk to the doctor anymore. Like, whether it's on a piece of paper or in person. Her brother like broke her heart in this scene. She's like, I really like this doctor guy.
Come, sister. We must steel ourselves for Miss Lamb's party.
Well, we'll see what happens next with Miss Hinkin's love life. She does need to speak up to her brother. I mean, you know, it's her life. I mean, she deserves the freedom to pick the man that makes her the happiest, like the man that she wanted to be with. I'm sure by this point that the doctor knows that Mr. Hinkin doesn't like him for some reason. We know why. They don't agree on a lot of things, especially that battle between religion and science. That would be an interesting holiday dinner if Miss Hinkin ended up with the doctor.
We passed a pleasant afternoon at Heyrick Park.
Ah, I'm glad.
Mr. Colburn and your sister seem well matched indeed.
This is the moment Harry hanging out with his mom. Most of the time we see Lady Montrose with both of her kids in the same room, but this is a one-on-one conversation between the mama bear and her son. They first talk about Lady Monrose's day spent at Heyrick Park with Alexander and his family and with Lydia. She keeps Harry in the loop. Like, Lydia and Alexander, they seemed to get along with each other really well. Like, they can be a great match. Like, it can happen. Like, they can get married very soon.
Much like you and Miss Lamb. I've been thinking. It is time to formalize your relationship.
We've only been courting a matter of weeks.
Then she compared that relationship to Harry and Miss Lamb, how Lady Montrose sees the same potential of a good marriage between Harry and Miss Lamb. And Harry, you know, he's enjoying Miss Lamb, but more like a friend because he has romantic feeling for Arthur, not Miss Lamb, and Lady Montrose doesn't have any clue about the secret arrangement between Georgiana and Harry.
That is long enough. I saw you enjoying the company of Mr. Arthur Parker earlier.
Yes, he has become a good friend. We're planning a trip to the Wye Valley.
I think that was a bad idea that Harry mentioned that vacation spot to his mom because she already had that assumption that there's something going on between Harry and Arthur. He should have kept that a secret a little bit longer, but I think that even further convinced Lady Montrose, like, oh, okay, he said that location, so he definitely escaping with Arthur, so they can, mingle with one another in secret.
I strongly suggest you cease your association with Mr. Park.
Why would I?
You know why.
The big reveal, she's letting him know, like, I know what's going on between you and Arthur, and Harry was shocked. Mom has those, mothers in general, like, they have those very talented senses. Like, not 5 senses, they have like 10 senses. Like, they can pick up on things pretty quickly. Harry, I bet he felt shocked, and I mean, definitely shocked, and I think he was a little bit embarrassed because he didn't expect his mom to find out about this like this way, I think he would rather tell her instead of her finding out on her own and having this conversation like a surprise. He wasn't ready for this. He did not see this coming.
I've always known you had certain leanings. I hope it might just be a passing affliction.
This is something that he had to do, and eventually he needed to do, but his mom got to it first, so she's saying it first, you know what I mean? It's not like the other way around where he tells her first and say the words first. She is saying it first, and he had to listen to her to say these things, and he can tell that she already disapproved this, and it definitely hurting his heart. Of course, you want your parents to be happy and proud of you, but she is not at the moment about this matter.
Useful folly. But now I see it as something rather more dangerous.
I have always been careful. I will continue to be.
He wasn't careful when Georgiana caught him with another man earlier this season. He need to be much more careful going forward. But his mom, like, she really doesn't care about that. She just doesn't want him to like men in general in a romantic way.
No, Harry, this cannot continue. You're a duke. You have a duty to marry well, produce an heir.
Harry has like many storylines in season 3, and one is he wants to be free in who he is. Like, he wants to be able to show off that he is gay, but he can't. Society expected a man and a woman in a relationship. He also had that storyline of trying to find a woman just because society expected him to find a woman because he is a duke. He had that high reputation, that high position. Everyone is looking down at him, like expected him to meet the criteria of a duke, and one of them is finding a woman and producing an heir, and that comes with a lot of stress and pressure, and you can see that pressure is on him again when his mom reminded him, like, hey, you're a duke, like, you have these responsibilities, and that's something that he is struggling this season, and he shared that struggle with Georgiana after she found out that he likes men.
Maintain the family name, not drag it through the gutter. Or worse still, to the gallows.
I can understand where the mom is coming from when it comes to safety. Like, she wants to protect her son. She doesn't want her son to get punished because this is something that society did not agree with. The preference, Harry preference in men, like, that's something that wasn't allowed back in those days, and she doesn't want her son to get punished or to get hanged on the pole. I had to look up that word gallows to see what it means, and it basically like it's a death penalty, and she doesn't want her son to die because he got caught with another man.
I'm thinking only of what's best for you, my darling boy.
She's thinking ahead. She's thinking a lot about this situation with Harry and Arthur. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress on Harry. He's feeling very emotional in this scene. It's a lot to take in from what his mom said. Like the tears, and it's just sadness, and I'm pretty sure he is angry too, because he cannot have the freedom to decide who he wants to be with.
Thank you, Mother.
Harry said thank you to his mom. I gotta give it to him, because most of the time the children, like if a parent discipline or a parent confront the child on something that the child is hiding or whatever from the parents, usually the child would, argue back or walk away. But Harry listened, even though what she said was brutal honesty. She still cared for him. Like, she showed care for him. Like, she doesn't want for Harry to take that risk to be with a man and then get caught and then get the death penalty. She would rather see her son be with a woman instead of dying on the pole. We will leave at this scene. This is Lady Denham, Mr. Price, and Edward entering Miss Lamb's party. Lady Denham's like, what kind of party is this? The party seemed to be leaning toward the younger generation, so it's a bit funny how Lady Denham reacted to the party. She's like, I thought it'd just be a dinner, but it's much more than just a dinner. It's a very fun party that Miss Lamb planned. And of course, Edward, he brings his eyes out for Augusta, and Augusta is actually there with her uncle. He brings his eyes on her like a hawk. We will pick up in the last part review for this episode, which will have a Miss Lamb party in the last 12-13 minutes of this episode, and then we will move on to episode 5. As usual, comment if you want to share any thoughts about this review. I will see you very soon for the last part. See ya.